First of all, welcome to everybody. My name is Martha Diaz Ashkenazi, and I am the publisher of the San Fernando Valley Sun El Sol newspaper, a community newspaper that's bilingual and free and has been circulating in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and the San Fernando Valley since 1904. So we have owned the paper for the last 20 years or so, and have we put our stamp on it, and we hope that we're serving you well, because that is the mission of a community paper, is to cover the news without fear or favor. And sometimes that's harder to do than other times, but my staff does that week in and week out. I have some of them here today. I have Maria Luisa here in the front, Maria Luisa Torres, and we have Gabriel in the back, Samantha, who will be moderating today, and you'll get to be here a little bit more, and of course Saul, who kind of is the glue in our office. So as a small business, we all do a lot of different things, so I want to thank them all for their continued support. So, and one person who leads our team is Diana Martinez. She is an award-winning editor, journalist herself. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but she was instrumental in pulling this gathering together. And I know she spoke to many of the panelists, and is sorry she couldn't be here, but I know she is, if she could dial in, she'd be dialing right now. What brings us together? The Sun is a recipient of an ethnic media outreach grant that is funded by the state of California and administered through the California Library. And its focus is to shed light on hate and how it's kind of just spreading in our community. We have covered stories of all different hate that affects different communities. This is our 5th in-person gathering that we've done. And this one we decided to focus on LGBTQ+, because of all of the hate that we see occurring everywhere. We have reported about it, and will continue to do so, and we thought it would be a good topic for us to discuss. And so, the purpose of this gathering today is to create a safe space. You in the audience are leaders of our community, stakeholders, and folks that we rely on to get the word out to others. We're going to be led by our expert panelists. We have Kevin, Gisela, Azucena, and Alejandro, who will be more formally introduced in a little bit. But I want to thank them for being here. And many times, I think hate comes from not understanding, from not knowing the other person. And I think this is for us to create a safe space where we give each other grace, and we talk about issues that are important without fear of judgment or anything. So what we will do to get the word out here is that today it's in person. We limited our audience on purpose, but to really get the message out, we will report on this in print, and it'll be online on our platforms, both on our website and on our social media. So that is what how we will get the word out. I made some little notes just to make sure that I don't miss anything here. So at this point, I'm going to turn over the program to Samantha, Samantha Raquel Norris, who has been with us for a little time, and her energy and enthusiasm has really lent a lot to the paper. I think you probably have enjoyed reading her stories. She has firsthand experience being in the field, and for that reason, we feel that she is absolutely perfect to be leading this discussion this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Samantha.
Thank you, Martha. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. We really appreciate you coming. Thank you so much to our panelists for being here. Shout out to our wonderful staff, Saul, Gabriel, Maria Luisa, Erica, Estella, and of course, Diana Martinez, who is instrumental in making the paper run every week and in putting this event together today. As Martha said, my name is Samantha Raquel Norris. I'm a reporter and photographer with the San Fernando Valley Sun El Sol as part of the California Local News Fellowship. We wanted to hold this event in part because of some of the events and incidents that we have witnessed and reported on this past year. Some of you may remember last October when protesters outside this very library prevented Pickle the drag queen from entering for a drag story time. In my reporting, I have witnessed firsthand anti-queer rhetoric and verbal abuse. I've heard multiple overtly transphobic voices, sentiments. Excuse me because I have some allergies, so I'm going to be like trying to clear my throat a lot throughout this. A lot of misinformation about the queer community being repeated and disseminated, often under the guise of protecting children. I myself have been called a pedophile, a stalker. I've been doxxed in my reporting. Although there have been outside instigators, this is also a homegrown issue. During city council meetings, we have heard local residents use rhetoric about the city of San Fernando being a community built on traditional family values and a reluctance to accept different viewpoints or ways of life. As Martha stated, I don't think that all of this comes from a place of malice, but often from a lack of information or understanding. I also very much want to highlight and note that we have witnessed the power of local community standing together against hate. We have seen the strength and fearlessness of local youth. There is clearly a lot of love and support within San Fernando and the Northeast Valley, as many of you here in this room know. I'm reading a lot of mine because I'm not as used to doing this as Martha is. So. Before we hear from our lovely panelists, we do have a short video. I want to show some of the incidents that have occurred and that we've reported on. I also do want to give a disclaimer that some of this can be triggering or disturbing. I try not to put the worst of it in here, but if you do want to step out at this time, please feel free to do so, and then come back in after. It'll be about 10 minutes. So the first incident that we reported on was at Savacoy Elementary School, and this is when parents and groups like Leave Our Kids Alone protested queer programming at the school last June. The next was the Drag Story Hour protest that happened here outside this library. Following that, we have a city council meeting where public comment really circulated around the event.
Cinco elected oficios hayan tomado la decisión de convertir a San Fernando homosexual.
And I don't understand how 5 elected officials could have turned San Fernando into a homosexual city.
No one is hating on gays. No one. We're just saying, okay, they're loving people, yes, but you just don't have access to loving our children, okay? You have to love each other and not our children.
The LGBTQ homosexuals, they were read it in the dictionary. The definition is they have a mental illness. You know, it is a mental illness. But you know what? It's one that can be fixed. One, they need a timer. You know, pray to God.
So this past Monday, we had another city council meeting where a lot of that rhetoric was reiterated.
Biblical values, of Catholic values and Christian Catholic values. Several city council members on this board are trying to change that. When you move against the body of Christ, you move against an army that is born for this particular time, and this is the body that is here today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Chavez. I would like to first congratulate a biological female for her election, voted by the people.
And then I also want to show a little bit of the hate language that we've seen. This is a post from the Midnight Hour record store who had tagging happen on the windows of their business. And this is some comments that we've seen on our own social media posts online. So with that, I'm going to go back. We wanted to share some of this just to kind of show what we've been seeing and set up before we have this conversation. Today we've invited 4 wonderful panelists to speak for you guys today. They are going to bring their experiences, their expertise, and talk about potential resources to combat this kind of hate. First, everyone, please give a warm welcome to Kevin Perez, a proud queer Guatemalan born and raised in the San Fernando Valley. His movement work began together with his mother, who introduced him to neighborhood council meetings, union meetings, and school advocacy work as a child. It is through these local involvements that Kevin was empowered and encouraged to practice community organizing and strategizing for social change throughout his lifespan. Currently, Kevin is the president and co-founder of Somos Familia Valle, a local gender and racial justice LGBTQ+ organization. He served in the Los Angeles Unified Human Relations Commission for Diversity and Equity, and in June 2023, he was recognized as a California State Capitol Pride honoree. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being here.
Testing. Hello, everyone. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much for the invite to the Sun and also for organizing this. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Perez. As y'all heard in the introduction, I'm the president and co-founder of Somos Familia Valle, a local gender and racial justice organization here serving LGBT communities in the Valley. But I first want to say, give a shout out to the organizers, because we're not hearing any noises outside. There's no groups, no anti-hate groups outside, so thank you for organizing this for us to feel safe. Groups like Serving Family Values and Proud Mom 818, and all these groups that exist, sometimes really trying to get communities together to come show that hate at our doors, and we're trying to strategize, come together and meet. I don't know if you want me to go on the hate, or do you want to introduce everybody first, or?
So, yeah, the way our programming is going to go is I'm going to introduce you, and then you can speak, and then afterwards I'll introduce the next panelist and speak.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of all of this, we're going to have a Q&A. So if you have questions, please hold them for the end of the talk.
Okay, well, I'll let you introduce the other folks, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'll introduce them before they speak. Yeah.
Oh. Sorry, I'll make sure everybody gets some knowledge. So yeah, as president co-founder of Somos Familia Valle, I have seen this happening in our communities for quite a while. I think one of the things that we see in these kind of situations, and also them coming to the council meetings, they keep acknowledging that this is something new, this is something that is coming in the last 2 years. But as an organizer who's been doing this work for 10 years, we've been doing LGBT work in the Valley. As y'all meet with the other panelists, we've been doing this work on the ground. giving those services, organizing and growing our movement. Sometimes we think of like Hollywood or West Hollywood as, you know, the mecca of LGBT folks. But there's amazing organizers that come from San Fernando Valley, and there's amazing groups, and you know, we have so many community spaces, even from places like CISA, Valley College, people doing ball houses here in the Valley. And one of the things that I feel like this movement is doing is trying to erase that history. You know, I organized San Fernando Valley Pride back in 2014 in Panorama City, and you know, it was a small movement. It was planned to be just taking down, marching down by nice, and you know, not funded, but we showed up and we came as a community and we showed up strong. Gisela was there. I think we just had a budget to buy pizza, but one of the things is like, they keep saying like, oh, we're this new group or we're this new, you know, new agenda that's happening. But we've been organizing on the ground, and we've been, you know, coming together and trying to help our communities, especially because our communities intersect in so many different issues when it comes to like homelessness, seeking services, dealing with immigration, housing, the criminalization system, our youth in our schools, and one of the things that I feel that these folks are forgetting is that we're part of the neighborhood, right? That we're part of the communities here. And one thing that I do notice with these groups like LOCA is they seem big, but they're just all over from LA, right? They're not local. We see folks coming from Glendale, we see folks coming from LA, we see folks that I've never met in our communities. And then we've been all doing LGBT events for quite a while, and they've never showed up. It was actually really quiet. We're like, that's so interesting that, you know, nobody ever protested our events or anything like that. So I just want to point out that this movement that started, and as y'all saw in the video clips with Satakoy, is a very funded and very strategized movement that we need to see it as. They're obviously meeting, they're obviously strategizing, they're obviously targeting certain locations in Los Angeles, and they're selling the narrative that we don't exist, and they're selling the narrative of religious, I don't know, religious stuff that, I mean, I'm not religious, but stuff that we know that there's even queer religious folks in our communities, and there's queer churches in the Valley, North Hollywood and Van Nuys. Our second San Fernando Valley Pride was hosted in a church in Van Nuys, and we do our winter banquet every year at a church. But yeah, I'll continue on saying more, but I want to let other folks speak too.
Thank you so much. Next, I want everyone to give a warm welcome to Gisela Sene, She was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley and currently lives in Van Nuys. She is a member of PFLAG LA. She facilitates both online and in-person peer support meetings for monolingual Spanish-speaking families throughout LA County. Gisela recently retired from LUSD, where she championed LGBTQIA+ and Black Lives awareness. She proudly supports the work of Trans Latina Coalition, Latina Equality Alliance, Gender Justice Los Angeles, and Out for Mental Health, the coalition of San Fernando Valley LGBTQ+ organizations and community members fighting for mental health equity. She is the proud parent of a daughter, Yasmin, and a non-binary child, Anthony, and is married to a retired teacher who taught at Mount Gleason and Fair Avenue. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. As Samantha mentioned, I'm a member of PFLAG, and if you've never heard of PFLAG, PFLAG. This is why I do this, because PFLAG was there for my family when our kid came out as non-binary. Everything that Kevin said. PFLAG is one of the largest, oldest LGBT groups in the country, and our focus is to advocate, educate, and support LGBTQ families and friends. We have a saying that says that when your kid comes out of the closet, parents go into the closet. And especially now, it is so important for us to make sure that every single parent of an LGBTQIA+ child comes out of their closet and stands up for their child and says, we love you, you're valuable, and we're here for you. Because every kid has 2 parents at least, and a larger family. We want them to show up. We know it's a process, and that's why PFLAG has support groups for families, where we help families through that, the steps of coming out of the closet. And eventually they become champions for their kids, and that's what we need. We need more champions everywhere in the world to support their kids and to tell everyone that they're loved. It's a loved community. So today I brought a lot of resources in English and Spanish for families of faith, families with transgender children, and for just families in general. They're also in Spanish, and the reason they're in Spanish was because my kid loved Spanish kids or Latina kids whose parents did not speak English and who were mildly homophobic, maybe transphobic, and were afraid. So I thought, you know, I don't want my kid to be afraid at their boyfriend's house. So that's when people like Los Angeles decided to start meetings for monolingual Spanish speakers. And it wasn't just like, we wanted those families to be first-class citizens. What I mean was, it wasn't supposed to be half English, half Spanish. No, it was all Spanish all the time for these families that deserve to be heard and deserve to be supported. So please feel free to pick up the literature we have. Please remember the word PFLAG, because we're there for the parents, to help parents to come out of the closet. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Azucena Saldana, who is a queer trans woman of color from the San Fernando Valley. Please, everyone, give her a warm welcome. She is an advocate for the LGBTQ+ community with lived experience and a background in mental health. Azucena serves as the LGBTQ+ community engagement specialist at Village Family Services and provides trauma-informed services to LGBTQ+ youth while emphasizing community activism. Azucena is a graduate student at Pacific Oaks College, earning a master's degree in marriage and family therapy and professional clinical counseling with a dual specialization in LGBTQIA+ and trauma studies. Azucena focuses her work on Latinx youth and families. Again, please.
Thank you. That was so well written. I wonder who this is. Hi everyone, again, my name is Azucena, I pronounce she, her. I work here in the San Fernando Valley. I grew up in Coquema. I grew up adjacent to the projects, to all these local gangs, and so I know what it's like to grow up here in the valley. I know the struggles that we face. I know where the hospitals are located. I know where the schools are. I know the people that frequent, the shops around, and who show up to council meetings and who show up to the parks, and I know this community, and I really am blessed to be here. And as much as I moved around the world and I've seen different places, I always come back home, and this is where I want to do my work. So when I saw the rise, and this is a fairly new movement of anti-trans, anti-queer sentiment of this belief that, kids are being groomed, that people are being taken advantage of. This is a relatively new movement here in the San Fernando Valley, but we've seen queer people exist through, history. We've seen that LA has this really deep history in queer liberation. I mean, we have the Black Cat and Silver Lake in the 60s. It preceded Stonewall, by 2 years. We have all these wonderful places throughout California that are, hallmarks of queer liberation. So we hear a lot of this new sentiment of like, these are new issues that are rising, but queer people have been here for a really long time. And before we get into this further conversation, I do want to acknowledge the land that we do sit on right now. We're taking up space in Tonga, Chumash, and a lot of other communities that were here before us that tended the land before we were here and continue to take care of it after we're gone. And one thing I want to share that really would help us understand this community as a whole right now is that prior to colonization being one of the big evils that took over this world along with capitalism and slavery, was that colonialism worked to uproot, deconstruct, and ultimately destroy indigenous communities and their beliefs. One trend that we see across the world, prior to colonization is that so many of these indigenous communities that we've disappeared now had third gender, fourth gender ideas and spirits that we have blatantly ignore now, and we call deviations, that we call mental disorders that can be cured. But lucky that it can be cured, because maybe we can catch on that. But we do see a lot of that being erased from our history, right? So there is nothing to be said about that now.
Sorry, I wanted to add that we're also on Tatagan land. That's because you named local tribes, but we're currently on Tatagan land, and their tribal center is down the street.
Exactly. I was trying to remember the time, I can't remember it off the top of my head. Sorry, I should have written these down before I came up here. But to that point, we have a lot of these communities who are indigenous to these lands that existed long before we did, who had ideas that we now consider to be devious or wrong, and that is colonization at work, that is oppression at work, and with the ultimate goal of oppression to be maintaining, a subverted group and a dominant class. So we see still that happening today. Although it's taking a lot of steps and a lot of different people are taking up the ability to champion change and to protect queer communities, to protect queer kids, to make sure that everyone has an ability to live in peace and harmony and to not be worried about stepping out into the world and feeling in danger. Organizations like Somos, PFLAG, I work with the Village Family Services. It's a really tough place to be in the world because sometimes we get lost in the business of it, but ultimately I do want to say that places like the Village Drop-In serve to be an access center for queer youth to come through and have a safe place to rest and take a breath. Although this hasn't been decided yet, and we're still kind of in the works of finding space for it, we do want to open up a gender-affirming closet with resources for queer kids who don't have access to that at home and giving them a safe space to maybe try things on, explore their identity, and really grow into who they are. It was mentioned that I am going to school to be a therapist, and that's really something I want to do. Although there is this huge influx of people who are, learning about mental health and learning how that affects people and making sure that it's not just trauma-informed, but also queer-focused and oppression-focused, I think that's one of the best things we can do. When we go into therapy, the big thing is these diagnoses, right? And this woman behind me who is in this video stated that the DSM-3 back in the 60s classified homosexuality as a mental disorder. And it wasn't until the 50s and 60s when people like Evelyn Kerr came through and reversed that diagnosis. We still see gender dysphoria in the DSM as a mental disorder. So although we want to work on being trauma-informed, there's a lot of decolonization with the mental health services that we need to put out there now. And because the people up here, like Kevin, Isala, Alejandro, we have the opportunity to hopefully decolonize that word, to understand how we're going to help people. And more over than just the people we're helping, the people who are coming through and preaching hate and who are saying that you can be gay, just keep quiet about it. The people who are doing that, as much as it upsets us and angers us and it makes us feel unsafe, I think if we come to realize that we can curve that into something productive. SAMHSA, which is one of the biggest providers of mental health and substance abuse resources in the country, put out some literature that shows that parents tend to come around. And a lot of the times the reason and not to justify it, but a lot of times the reason these people have these fears is that it comes from a place of protecting their kids. If we can zero in on that, if we can focus on the fact that you want the best for your child, can we educate you? Can we get you to come around and turn you into an ally, right? And that's a lot, it's easier said than done. There's a lot of hard work to be done there, but I think through community organizations, and even before, community-based organizations, grassroots organizations like Somos, places where people can meet and discuss their fears and traumas and process through that, I think we can turn these movements of hate into something that at best we can neutralize, or at worst we can neutralize, but at best can turn into our allies. So I think that's the work we're doing here, and having a room full of people who are willing to listen to that shows that that change can be effective in our communities. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very powerful. Excuse me. Finally, everyone, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Alejandro Soria. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist, former educator, and passionate advocate for the LGBTQ+ community. He currently holds a position as Senior Director of Outpatient Mental Health with the Village Family Services, and also practices out of his private practice, Hope Therapy and Wellness in the San Fernando Valley. With a background in education and a deep commitment to social justice, Alejandro transitioned into the field of therapy to address the emotional and relational needs of his community. Alejandro's empathetic approach and dedication to cultural competency make him a trusted therapist for clients seeking support and validation. His unique blend of teaching experience and therapeutic expertise equips him with valuable insights into human behavior and communication dynamics. Through his work, he strives to promote acceptance, understanding, and empowerment within the LGBTQ+ community and beyond. Alejandro was also recently appointed by LA County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath to serve on its first LGBTQ+ commission. Again, everyone, please welcome.
So odd to hear people talk about Ilsa. And by the way, this is why I hired Susana, because she took all my reading points. So we work together at the Village Family Services. We currently we run a drop-in center for homeless youth at the drop-in center, among other programs. But we are changing the focus of our view at the Village Family Services. We're constantly working on not just the homeless population, our homeless youth, but also when we realizing that at least half of our youth that are coming through our services do identify as LGBTQIA+. So we're definitely wanting to enhance these services along with the work with Kevin and P-Flight and our community. My work is in mental health, and as a former teacher and now therapist, my goal has always been to work directly with the community, to work directly with the families. I get patients that come and tell me, they bring me their kids, something wrong with my kid. I come putting on eyeshadow and wearing a dress, and I need you to fix them. So, and I need to just point towards you. I think we all got caught at least once. And in the work that we do, and I think that the work that I do with the families is understanding that they've identified a patient, they identified this child and as something wrong. And my goal is to eventually turn it into family therapy, family work, family systems work. And finding this work in San Fernando has been very rich, has been very fulfilling. My husband's sitting right here. When we moved to the Silmar area and we decided to open my practice here in San Fernando, he had already been in business. He co-owned a nightclub in North Hollywood, a gay club, Club Cobra, and Club Chico in Montbello. we had experienced a lot of pushback from the community. We had these big pride flags that we'd set around the club, and we experienced the writings on the wall. We experienced people who didn't frequent the business. We felt that it was, we were used to it, and it was going to continue to come because it was an LGBTQ plus place. But when we opened here in San Fernando, when I opened my practice, there was a concern about, should I come out as an open gay therapist, affirming therapist, as in my community? But I then realized that there was already, as Kevin mentioned, there was already a big pride community here, proud community here in the San Fernando Valley. And there were already a network of LGBTQ plus therapists, and it felt like a very peaceful, nice, open, and I read The Sun, I was very excited about The Sun as well, to be part of San Fernando. And then we have these protests, which really start blew my mind. My goal and what I really want to do is be able to work with people and find out that, what is the fear? What is the fear of having a drag queen read to your children? Because I know when I was raised, my mom said, I'm going to build you up. Here you go. You decide on your own. There's a sentiment nowadays that I can go up to your business because you have a pride flag in your business, a trans flag, and I can go to your business and write something on the wall and run away. Whereas instead of, okay, that's what they're doing, you do you, I don't like it, I won't shop there, I'll leave you alone, and you leave me alone. We don't have that anymore, and people feel that they have the right to go up to your house, to your business, to your family, and tell you that you're doing this wrong. And that's my goal. But my goal is to do this week. What is that? Where is that coming from? And it comes from fear, and to be able to identify that.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to our Q&A portion of the panel. I think to start, a lot of you brought up family potentially not understanding. Have you experienced anything within your own families or friends not understanding? And how do you deal with it? And if you haven't yourself, how do you think people who are experiencing something coming from their own family can really talk to them or try and deal with that? And if their family isn't accepting or understanding, where can they go or what can they do to find a place to be accepted? That's for anyone who wants to take it.
I'll start it off. I know it's also a generational issue. I know that we're 50 years old, so when I was coming out in the 80s, it was, if you need to tell your family, it wasn't you have to tell them. If you need to tell them, where they find out, let's hope they accept. And if they don't, go find your chosen family. You move on, you choose where you feel safe. You leave where you're at risk. What I'm finding nowadays with the younger generation, which is awesome, we have youth that come to my practice or to the drop-in center, and they say, I got kicked out of home, they don't accept that I'm gay or that I'm trans. Can you get me some help? And my parents. They're still reaching out. There's not this, if you accept me, great. If you don't, it's your loss. But now what I'm seeing is, get me some help, get me shelter, get me therapy, and also can you get help from my parents? Can you help them understand? Can you facilitate family therapy? They're not, what I'm finding is there's a huge need for the family to stick together, to want to stay together.
I think to speak to that as well, I mentioned Sam's study earlier, so a lot of this conversation tends to stay over this gloom of how things go wrong, right? But a lot of the literature and a lot of the research shows that even in the most hyper-marginalized communities, so you're looking at unhoused trans kids of color who come from impoverished backgrounds, who have conservative parent or conservative parents in that background, right? But the literature shows that even when you have all these really hyper-marginalized intersections of their identities, there is a lot of resilience in these communities. So to answer the question, I think there's a lot of resilience in people and in families. It starts with how do you foster that? And I think that was the second part of your question about how do you foster that in these people. So this might not be the answer people want to hear, but time does a lot to help. We've seen in research outside of this, generally speaking, even in medicine, time passes by and that usually alleviates symptoms or the manifestation of those symptoms in people. So when we look at families, and Alejandro made a really good point, a lot of these times that queer kids come up to us, they are looking for services for themselves and they are looking to survive, but there is this bigger, how can I get my family to accept me? And that comes from a place of, I think I can get my family to accept me. And that's enough of a bridge to jump onto to start doing that work. So highlighting the resilience of queer kids, being able to be themselves, being authentic, and growing into who they need to be with the support of their families. If we can offer that support through PFLAG, if we can offer that support through family therapy or just community organizations or just having a peer out there who are like, how did you, work through your kid coming out? How did you work through, learning to be a more accepting and loving parent? And highlighting that a lot of the times parents love their kids. If we work on the assumption that parents love their kids and they want the best thing for them, it's not about, how can we change your mind? It's getting into a place where they're willing to love their children even more. And I think that's a big reason why we're doing this work right now, right? And that's why activism and awareness is so important. So I think that's
Well, I remember when my kid first came out, it's really, I think it happens to a lot of people where you may know people from the LGBTQIA community, and that's all well and good, but when it's your family, it's so different, really, it really is. And I remember I told my kid it was okay, but it really wasn't okay, because the minute they left the room, I started crying, and I did not stop crying for a long time, and I realized that I was really more concerned about myself than my kid, which I'm ashamed to admit it, but it is true. I was more concerned about what the neighbors will say about me, my kid with the red hair, or rainbow flags. What will my family think about me? Will my husband leave me because I encouraged my kid to paint their nails? It was all about me. And I don't know, I think it was the time that I saw my kid playing soccer with AYSO, because we thought sports is good for kids. It wasn't like to make them more masculine or anything. But I remember standing out in the field with my kid, watching my kid, and for a whole hour, my kid was standing in the corner, and none of the other boys threw the ball, kicked the ball over to my kid. And that's when I think it hit me, like, oh my God, my kid is being ostracized simply because of who they are. And somehow these other, shitty kids knew it, How could they do that to my kid? How could the coaches allow that? And that's when something I started to look for help, and that's why, I always do this PFLAG thing, because that's the only thing I knew as a person growing up in the 80s and 90s. I knew about PFLAG, so I looked at PFLAG, and it was really, for me, very helpful to walk into a room after weeks of my husband saying, don't go, because if you go, maybe that'll make them more gay, or I was afraid, oh my God, maybe there are going to be protesters outside, Planned Parenthood used to have protesters. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be attacked for going in. Nothing like that happens. It's very low key. But when I walked into the room and saw other parents, like my parents, religious families, white families, and they all were there because they love their kids, and I thought, oh my God, okay, it's okay to love them. I'm not alone. I should be more like them, and really helped me to find other community. But I do have to say that, because I think we're all here because we're activists. It was when Proposition 8 passed and the movement to overturn that I really became militant, because I thought, this is so unfair. My kid deserves to be loved like anybody else. And I took a harsh approach with my family, cutting them off basically until they accepted my kid. But you can be harsh, you can be nice, but there are resources available for parents parents. And really, like Susana said, time does make, I didn't become like this. I didn't wear these the first day. I was afraid of wearing these. I thought, oh my gosh, people are going to think I'm gay. See how it's a process, but we will get there. There are no resources out there. They just have to be willing to have that love for family. And I think most people, unless they're terrible psychopathic parents, most people love their kids. So there are resources out there, and that's why I'm glad we're here to let everyone know that there are resources. Parents aren't alone. Families aren't alone.
Thank you, Gisela. So I love the concept of talking about families because I think being a queer person, sometimes we get to define our own family, and I know some people mention chosen family. So when I didn't come out to my parents, they found out when I was like 13, 14. So it was an interesting situation of being, getting ready to get kicked out. My mother, when she told me, I was coming from a quinceañera practice, but she told me, she brought the Bible to the table, I was crying, she was crying, and there was a lot of why are you like this? You can't be like this, everything you could think of. And being in that situation as a young person, I think one of the things I was always thinking in my head, okay, do I just need to not exist? Where am I gonna go if I get kicked out? I remember I lived by Laura Canyon in Roscoe. I remember I wanted to go to this bridge by the freeway. I was like, okay, I'll just stay there for a couple of days and I'll figure it out when I go to school. But as a young person, as a 14-year-old, I shouldn't be thinking those things. But one of the things that I do remember during that situation and being scared that my family was gonna find out, and I was able to find chosen family, right? There was groups in schools, like the GSA clubs, that were very let's talk about all queer art, queer media, and then I was raised in the Lady Gaga era, so I was very born this way kind of thing. But I think when I think of family and family acceptance and all the work that's done for family acceptance, I wish I had that when I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, because it just didn't exist that much, or it was hard to find online. But I relied a lot on that chosen family. A lot of my queer friends, we all supported each other. We're all dealing with that same situation, and having those few spaces, those allies like teachers who saw us, was so important, especially in the schools, and even in outside programs, right? And what I saw in outside programs is oh, we know you're queer, but we don't know how to deal with you, but you're accepted, which is perfect at the time. But now we're in this era, Gen Z is very queer and out, and they're coming out earlier, 10 years old. And I think this is where you see our movement, we're growing, because we're tired of being in those closets. We're tired of waiting to come out. We don't need to come out. I always tell my mom now that when I talk to her, it's I never came out to you. It's so funny. It's but now we're we're cool and stuff. But I think it's those situations, right? We need to see a higher investment in rural communities. If you see on the news, there is so much happening in rural communities with LGBT acceptance. It's because they're also tired of hiding in the closet. And I think that's why it's so big here in San Fernando, because we're in the edge of LA, right? Or almost hitting the edge. So these conversations are finally happening. So when I see these protests and these things happening and these council meetings happening, it's okay, we're finally having these conversations, because years ago we've done a pride march in front of San Fernando City Hall already. They've done the flag raising already with City Montañez. There's been so much happening, but now I think because we're growing and there's so much happening, and rural areas are getting tired. Because urban areas are pretty good, you think of LA, New York, but the outskirts, it's finally our time to really get the organizing done, the funding, the programming, and just the being accepted in our communities. And those are the deep conversations that we're having with our families. And then yes, we wanted to be on the news. We wanted to create a kind of like stir the pot, and I think these folks are trying to do that. But I think one of the things too that when I saw this all happening in the news is in our dinner table at my home, it's like, why are they doing this? Well, I was like, well, there's this big religious movement of conservative Armenian parents that think this should change, and North Hollywood has a big Armenian population. But in my head, I was like, I have gay Armenian friends. I grew up with gay Armenian friends. Actually, one of them was best friends with the gay Dallas Armenian organization. So when Saturday happened, I was like, Dallas, come through. We need to show that there is gay Armenians in our community. In that protest, it was so interesting to see, because I think we all showed up and they did not expect that at Saturday. They didn't expect for us to be so organized. We had the senator, we had the LAUSD superintendent, we had everybody there, right? We squatted up. But we even had a priest, we had everybody there, and I think as their first step in releasing this Leave Our Kids Alone movement, they were so mad at us. They were so bothered. And they were trying to find that one win, right? And they didn't win that day. And we all saw what happened with Pickle, and we saw what happened with Egg Glendale. And that Egg Glendale has their own small queer community that's also fighting. And we see here with, everything that's happening in San Fernando. But I think one of the things we need to discuss, and us too, is we need to learn how to collaborate, we need to learn how to mobilize, because some of these things just happen, right? I didn't know about the drag story hour event because the local group had blocked me of everything, my personal stuff. They did not want me to find out. Because, once Kevin finds out, I'm like, okay, let's bring everybody on, kind of thing. Because they saw what happened in Satakoy. But I think with that, we need to be more collaborative, even with our supervisor and stuff when these situations happen, so we could avoid, this big momentum that they think they're having, but they're not, because we're organizing and we're growing, right? That's so much to say, but...
Yeah. I think you brought up some really interesting points. I mean, a lot of what you all spoke about in some way are like outside societal pressures to be a certain way or act a certain way, but that queer people, as you said, have existed throughout time. So, and you're talking a lot about how these organizations, these parental rights groups, are trying to claim things in ways or kind of erase that queerness from the history that has existed. Talking about how maybe the Armenian community is saying, Armenian conservative Christian Armenians are against this isn't normal or something, but there are queer Armenians who exist, and we see that here too, right? We're hearing a lot of rhetoric of traditional family values, traditional Catholic Christian values from the Latino community, and but obviously, there are queer Latinos, and there are queer people who are religious, right, and spiritual. So you're talking a lot about this organizing that has been happening lately, and we've seen a lot of political organizing from these groups. I wonder if you can speak, other people maybe on the panel can also speak a little bit more to how to combat that political organizing that is happening and how to kind of mitigate what is happening and show maybe, as you said, collaboration between different organizations. And especially in this year of politics, you know, we have an election in November, and there's historically often a lot of rise in hate crimes or hate incidents that take place during election years. So I'm wondering if you can all speak to kind of that aspect.
Yeah, so just adding to what Asusana said about colonization, right? I think one of the things that we need to look at when these things happen in our communities is how they practice colonization. So they try to divide us. They try to put racial groups against each other, or they try to make it about a business or about religion, whatever it may be. So we need to see how LOCA and they work, right? When they see us united, working as queer people, as allies, as politicians, as all these service providers, that's when they get scared, right? They want to kind of destroy what we're creating. We're trying to build safer communities. We're trying to build more acceptance. And I think when they divide us, they think they're winning, but I'll let other folks.
You know, I'd like to say that Kevin has been spearheading the Outcome Mental Health Coalition in San Fernando Valley. You've been so successful with it. I mean, you really got together a lot of work. You've grown the coalition, and I think that it really speaks to your organizing abilities, and I'm really happy to be part of it. And I encourage all of you to look for Somos Familia Outcome Mental Health, because you're doing Outcome Mental Health in San Fernando Valley, because you are doing amazing work, and I know that you're a great organizer, and you're a great uniter. You're a uniter.
Yeah.
You're my hero, honestly. No. So, like, really quick, to jump off what you said about what I said. So colonization, right? We can look at the ways that colonization impacts us, but like, let's even look a little bit further. The fact that we've internalized colonization, and I guess that means how we ingrained it into our own being and our own culture. Let's look at Latinx culture. Oh, actually, look, if we're going to bring it up, like Latinx, right? When we say Latinx, there's a big surge of people who say that's not proper Spanish, or that now you're gentrifying my language. But where does Spanish come from? Is it native to the indigenous lands of Mexico? I think there's a country called Spain where that comes from. So it's a colonizer language. So people get upset when we start to decolonize language, and they're like, now you're gentrifying my culture. But they don't realize that they've internalized that hatred towards themselves. And what does that hatred then look like when you've internalized colonialism? It looks like you are the colonizer, and the only way to get out of colonization as being a victim of it is to become the oppressor. Paulo Freire being this really amazing, liberating author, said that when education is not liberating, it becomes the goal of the oppressed to become the oppressor. So when we look at our community and we look at the way that people organize and they come through and they say, you're turning our Christian nation into a homo nation or whatever, you around an individual who, come from these indigenous lands are speaking like colonizer now. So a lot of that work becomes decolonizing that. Now to your point about us being an election year and how we organize and how we fight, queer people have always been here. Queer people have always organized. And that's a big thing that people do, that way that they try to divide us. They try to make it seem like the civil rights organization was separate from, feminist liberation, was different from queer liberation. But all of those things happened at the same time. All of those movements happened at the same time, and they were supporting each other. When, we were fighting to go up the steps to, the Washington Monument to support disabled people, it was those femme lesbians that were there to take care of people who were tired of walking up those steps because they didn't have their adaptive, mobility devices. When people were getting, were dying during the AIDS crisis, we banded together and we supported one another. So don't let them make you think like we're different organizations fighting for different things. Oppression, although it takes different forms, all comes from the same place, and that's colonization, capitalism, and slavery. And those are the ways that they oppress us now. Now, in election year, we are not organized, and history has shown that people will always organize and will always come together to fight for what is right and liberating. Now, the question I don't think is how do we organize better or how do we take this into our own hands. It's about how do we take care of ourselves in these moments, because we can always band together, organize, and fight for liberation. But the point is that we can take care of ourselves for those in-between moments, and that's where community care comes in. Just as much as self-care comes in, community care does as well. So being able to take moments of rest for ourselves, giving ourselves grace, acknowledging our resilience in these moments, and giving ourselves a minute to breathe is what's going to keep us fighting through these moments, right? So we can organize, but we also have to take breaks. We also have to give ourselves the grace to be able to make it through another rally, to be able to come back from something that really hurts us and takes all the energy out of us, and for us to be able to grow that back into ourselves, especially in an election year.
No, I was thinking about the question, how do we reduce, how do we work with protesters or organize groups that are, go against LGBTQ groups? And again, my approach is through mental health, is through, I know, and it reminded me of the time that in Prop 8, when Prop 8 passed, and before that, the months before that, my current husband now, we weren't married yet, and we just, it became, so in California we were, it was legal on March 08 to be married, and then it was up for a vote for election in November, and it was just such a short span. We thought, should we get married? And we're like, no, we can't plan a wedding in 6 months, are you kidding me? It's a gay wedding, we need 3 years. So, but then the closer we got to November election, we realized it was very likely to pass. But we worked with organizations to try to, the organization we work with, it was all focused on get to know us. So we figured this organization was get to know us. What is it about us that you're so afraid of us being, having the same rights as you do? It's not about we want to be married in your church by your priest. It was what is it about get to know us? And they didn't step up. No one wanted to get to know us. No one wanted to talk to us. Half they realized how cool and cute we were. They didn't want to change their vote. But so we ran to the courthouse and when we got married, that was a whole other experience. But the idea is the people need to step up. They need to show up to the conversations. They need to show up. They not just show up when it's time to rally and yell and hide behind each other and behind your signs. Sit down with me. Sit down. Let's have dinner. Let's have fun. Let's have coffee. Let's talk. I'm okay. You can tell me what you don't like about me. I'll read you too. I'm just kidding. I want to know what is it? Where's it coming from? What are you afraid am I going to do to your children? It was really sad. I was watching a video and I was focused on Pickle and watching her face, and then I realized there was somebody was holding a baby, holding a child, and yelling and screaming, and the kid was already traumatized. I'm looking, they're so worried about their kids, and right now in vivo you were traumatizing your child. So then it's not about you're worried about the kids. What is it? This is about you. This and not being able and not wanting to show up to that conversation because you're going to find out through my therapeutic work that it's about you. You don't want to admit that you don't like me, and that's fine. But let me be and you can be. But that's the common ground that they want to do. So anyhow, I invite any protester, anyone that wants to come have a conversation with us. I'll calm them down. I know how these two can get. No, but they're incredibly brilliant, and we are inviting people to have this conversation with us. And let's see what we can need. Let's hash this out.
So with Prop 8, we just want to give a reminder that there's going to be an amendment in November. So that those conversations about marriage are going to be coming in November. That's going to be a ballot measure to make Prop 8 stronger in case Supreme Court decides to take it out, just like how they did with Roe versus Wade. So those conversations of marriage are still happening that we're going to have to do in our communities in November, because that is one of the measures that's going to be there to make it stronger. So I just wanted to add that even though it looks like we're moving forward, we're always kind of stepping back. So yeah, get ready to have those marriage conversations. It's gonna come up in November.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much. We're going to open up this conversation to the audience. If anybody has questions or have things that they want to share. And yes, just please state your name before you ask your question.
Thank you, Samantha, and thank you all the panelists and the founder, owner, right? Okay, myself, I gotta make sure I can get it. We talk about housing and we talk about other different resources. I myself, my life has changed in the past 6 months. I met Kevin about over a year ago. We were actually on Valley View's SMB meetup. Now I work there at the same day. So, which I feel so empowered by Somos Familia Valle. What are other resources such as jobs and careers that you might offer or can get connected with queer youth like me? I mean, I'm an adult, but I still feel like a youth because I'm coming out every day. I think that just to speak on that, I feel like I have lived many lives, as a queer person. So I know that now that I have a safe life at my house with my family, especially given this economy, besides housing, I think something that can really benefit the community is, connection with jobs and careers. Because I know that I've faced a lot of difficulties, even working for LAUSD, which is, thank you so much. And your husband as well, working for LAUSD and continuing to make sure that we feel safe. I just wanted to see any other resources.
Yeah, so for folks who don't know, a lot of people sometimes they confuse with Somos Familia Valle, that we're this big organization and have a center and all this stuff, right? We have staff. So we're 10 years old this year, but it's been all volunteer run and organized. Just everybody's a volunteer who's done the pride, who's done everything. So I just recently became a staff member for Somos Familia Valle 2 years ago, and that was through organizing and grant writing and all this. But one of the things that that's why I mentioned funding is there is no funding, LGBT funding coming to the Valley. We're just doing it out of our hearts. And one of the things that we do need is that funding. So a lot of folks are we used to do youth programming, support groups, all volunteer run. So a great thing about this year that Somos is going to do is we're going to open our first community center in Sun Valley through this Measure J county-wide funding that was taking funding from police. So we are going to be announcing that in June, our first community center, which we hope to provide free services and stuff, which, that's all up and coming, and will be the first LGBT center in the East Valley that is all queer, trans people of color, board-led. And when I say board-led, means the people on top are people of color. A lot of these LGBT nonprofits, it's still the people on top are white LGBT folks. So the investment in our communities, we need to see that representation, right? So I hope to hire that. What I always do, I do leadership, I do strategizing, I do organizing, and that's what I love to do. And I hope to create future leaders, right? I also can't be doing this work forever. Our mental health, but yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to scream my name. My name's so.
Thank you so.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
So just to be clear, you're the question was finding queer work.
Yeah, just being able to connect with others, and I mean those of privilege, like you said, queer adults that have the access to higher funding that can further fund Somos Familia Valle. What are other ways to just connect? Because I know that I've networked a lot in this past 6 months, and I still am volunteering. I want to volunteer for the rest of my life to any organization, but I am struggling a little bit with careers and jobs, and I know a lot of other queer adults that are barely coming out or barely looking, I guess, physically queer, I just want to see how, what's safe work environments have you seen, or that we can kind of connect each other with?
So that's a really important question because, well, one, not to undercut the fact that we need to acknowledge workspaces that actively hire, not just like we happen to have run into somebody who was trans who now works here, but making an effort to actively hire queer people into positions that are meant for them. I think there's another side of that coin where we're both queering jobs that already exist, so taking jobs that really can go up to anybody but then making them queer. I think there's also another side of it too. There's this level of like normalcy I think a lot of people look for. So I think a lot of people, and it gets problematic because now you start to get into this conversation of, you know, like my identity isn't important, or like the conversation of, I don't see your gender, I don't see your race, and therefore you're actively not seeing the oppression that comes with that. So I think it's really important. So I mean, we've seen jobs pop up in places like Somas, right, or like the Village, where we're hiring people who have lived experience, who are peers to the community, that can actively bring in their perspective, lived experience, and make it work. But I think also taking a step forward beyond actively hiring queer people and queering jobs that already exist, right? So how often do we go to a doctor seeking gender-affirming medicine and it's a cis-het person, right? So going in and saying like, okay, can we queer the position of a doctor? Can we queer the position of a firefighter? How often we you know, look and say like, oh, women can't be firefighters because biologically they can't. Dude, I've been dropped like women like my whole life. Like it's possible, you know, that they can do that. So like going in, queering these environments, queering these positions, and not just taking like, okay, I can get a job at a bank or something, but can make this understandable to then look at the inequity that happens in all these other positions, right? So putting queer people in positions that aren't necessarily queer to make sure that they're being equitable and that they're being understood the whole new layer of context.
Thank you. Would be above and beyond that question. Thank you.
Do you have another question?
I wanted to add to your question. I have started noticing lately a few people in volunteer positions who, when they're asked to do a new task, have started to ask, is there a stipend associated with this?
Yes.
And I remember when my kids started saying, well, are you paying for this? I was offended, but I know that came from my privilege, you know? I think it's okay to, you know, baby steps for some people. Ask, just ask. You never know what you know, if you don't ask, you already have no.
Yeah.
Just ask, but because I'm only telling you this because I have seen it in P-Flag, people asking for money to pay facilitators, pay organizers, and in other organizations, I have seen it. If you ask, sometimes the answer is yes.
Thank you.
All right, I feel like but you know, the baby's waking up, it's right. Just quickly, my name is Christina Cornell, and my husband and I have a business here, a couple of businesses here in San Fernando, and I'm also a resident here in San Fernando. So is my son and his girlfriend and my granddaughter and my mom and my brother. So a lot of us. But I just want to let everybody know that I'm just so excited to see so many people here and supporting San Fernando, supporting our LGBTQ plus community. I also am a co-founder of the San Fernando Outdoor Market. And a little plug, June is Pride Month here in San Fernando, and it was recognized and brought forth by Cindy Montañez, as Kevin said. So we want to keep that going, but we need support. We need a lot of volunteers. Like I know, you know her. And I just want to say that for businesses here in San Fernando, the question is also like, I know Midnight Hour and has a lot of LGBT plus employees, but also our business, 1984 Vintage, and our business now Bodevi, we are open to hiring everybody, and we're inclusive. And I would like to know if there's like a way that businesses can be recognized somewhere in online as businesses that are welcoming to everybody, so that people that are looking for employment, they know that we're open and that we're accepting to everybody. So that's my question, but I also just wanted to let everybody know that June is Pride Month here in San Fernando, and our outdoor market is themed for Pride. So, thank you.
So one of the things I've seen people do, and we don't have anyone from Burbank quite here today, I don't think, but they made an effort to go out and meet with business owners, and what they would do is they would put up a little sticker that says, like, this is an LGBTQ plus friendly business. I think that's actually like a really interesting way to start like a community organized website where, you know, we can have an ongoing update, because sometimes we get, you know, we'll start something and then it just kind of goes off into history, right? But like keeping an active, updated registry of queer-friendly businesses, that we can share job postings, that we can share, you know, openings, that, you know, we're looking to hire this, we're looking to expand here. I know at the Village we have partnerships with other nonprofits, such as Puerto del Barrio, which offer, you know, employment for 250 hours, Goodwill, Walgreens, Trans can work. So, I mean, if you want to connect with us afterwards and see if you know, we can get something going on too, we can start to have that conversation and see if we can push it up the ladder.
A while ago, I remember, I think there was a campaign in LA County where they were trying to put these stickers on businesses where it was let consumers know it was a safe space, plus we also hired LGBTQIA folks. So, and they created a pamphlet and a website. I don't know if it went through, but I would love to see that in San Fernando.
Especially in San Fernando, because more people see people in their shops
Visibility.
working and
If more visibility, absolutely. If businesses you realize you shop at and you see the sticker, people, the more visibility, the more you normalize it.
We can meet afterwards too if you want. I think I have a resource here for that, for a registry.
Yeah, I do love the sticker idea too. I know in San Francisco, a big push that they have there is a lot of restaurants and shops. You know, they emphasize this is an LGBT-friendly business, and that's how they were able to queer up all of San Francisco, because it came to that point where they're now organizing how do we queer the whole city, right? And you know, there was a lot of organizing LGBT groups there, and that was one of the things. So if you want to organize, I'm happy to work with you with that. And I also just want to add that the county has this new initiative called LA versus Hate. So if y'all ever see or encounter hate in your own communities, just go to laversushate.org, and it's an alternative to reporting to police. And it will connect you 1 to 3 days to work with someone to see what are the steps that you could do to report hate in whatever situation. And this is something new that just started last year, and a lot of our communities fought for this initiative. And it's y'all probably seen posters on the buses like LA versus Hate. But yeah, that is a new initiative that a lot of organizations push for. LAversushate.org.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump off of that. LA versus Hate, also California versus Hate, Seed versus Hate. They kind of work as resource hubs in many ways. So if you go and you talk to them, they can put you in touch with resources, attorneys, or mental health resources, other things like that. They can help you draft a incident report and help you file criminal charges with your local police station, or civil cases as well if you are interested in doing that. We have another question.
I was specifically wondering if you had any resources for LGBTQ youth that were religious. Like if you had youth that came in that were questioning either their religion or where their place is and how God kind of fits into all that. Because I noticed in the video it seemed that was a big part of what the community was talking about. So.
I mean, for our LGBT youth council, some of the folks, some of the youth were religious, but it wasn't something that we had shun or we push away. I think we acknowledge all religions. It's not like queer people come together and be like, we're not going to talk about like the Bible. We're not, because a lot of our folks are spiritual. They're part of different, you know, even Muslim, whatever it may be, different faiths. But I think in as queer people and as we build our queer groups, I think one of the things that we create is like making sure everybody feels welcome, right? If you need faith-based programming, the Valley has actually the most faith-based support groups out of LA, and a lot of people from LA come to the Valley. Especially there's SGI in North Hollywood. There's the community, community something church in North Hollywood. MCC, yeah. There's so many faith-based groups, and they do youth LGBT scholarships. The sister professional colleges also support. Like they're all from here in the Valley. Like the Valley's pretty queer. Like, and there's a lot of resources, but I don't know.
I brought some pamphlets about faith in our families from PFLAG, and I was telling Maria earlier today that last week a few of us atheist PFLAG members went to St. Patrick's near USC to support our PFLAG members who are of faith. There is a ministry in the Catholic Church for LGBTQ IA+ families. The pastor there is very welcoming, but you know, it's just like everywhere else. Some churches have more open pastors than others. But like Kevin said, there are a lot of other churches here in the Valley that are welcoming, and it's up to, it really is up to the community to ask also, you know.
I think to also highlight that point, one of the things that there's these posts that float around. I love Tumblr because it's such a great place online. But there was this post that said, why God created grapes and not wine was so that people could participate in the act of creation. I thought that was really beautiful. The same reason why God created so people could not plant was so that people could engage in that act of creation. Right? So I thought it was really amazing. I'm looking at another one that I recently saw too. Well, it was actually a lot of people saying, really stand on the kind of topic. A lot of these people who were a lot of parents go through this mourning period of finding out their children are trans, and they feel like, I feel like my child died, or I feel like I lost a child, and the response to that was, your child never felt more alive. And I think that's a testament to how much we have left to learn, and how much, I think, room we have to love people. So that's what I'm saying.
Hi, good afternoon, and I want to start out by thanking Diana Martinez, Martha, and Samantha for putting this together, and also for inviting me and Acting Lieutenant CJ Chase onto this event. So I wanted to start out by just briefly introducing myself. My name is Fabian Valdez, and I'm the police chief here with the San Fernando Police Department. And today was a very important day in that I really am interested in learning more about your respective organizations and the advocacy and the commitment the San Fernando Police Department has to this community, all members of the community, is that we want you to feel safe, we want you to feel heard, and we understand that as a organization, we remain committed to ensuring the safety of everybody, and we know that right now that there are factors that are coming into play and discussions that sometimes may be uncomfortable for people, and groups may come together and not always agree, but as a police department, we're committed to ensuring that everybody exercises their respective freedoms, and at the same time, we want to work with all groups. Should groups want to gather and voice opinions, that they do it in a safe space. So with that, if the panel is interested, I would like a follow-up conversation to learn more about your organizations, as well as how we can better serve you as a police department, but also if there are events or other things that are being planned in San Fernando where we can support or at least ensure that it's going to be a safe venue, we would like to know about that. So thank you very much for allowing me here.
Thank you. I think one of the issues that I think comes up a lot for people is historically the first Pride was a riot, right? And historically, a lot of the times that queer people have risen against oppression has been due to police corruption. It's been due to over-policing in certain areas, and a lot of the transphobic and homophobic policies that go into the way that we operate in our communities. Thank you for taking an active part, not just in promoting justice, but also coming to queer events and taking this to the department, right? I, a while ago, tried to do a training with the LAPD, and when I brought up pronouns, I got a lot of pushback. And they said, well, what happens when I have a male suspect running for me, and if I'm going to be woke and use she, her pronouns, then we're going to lose them. And at that point, I was like, I can't teach you something because you're not looking for resources. I almost felt like they kind of invited me to kind of prove a point that, this is just going to make their lives more difficult. But if you're coming in and you're telling us that, you want to create a safe space in San Fernando for people, I think one of the best ways that can happen is we want to have a pride here, but I think with seeing what happened at the library and seeing what happens, with elementary schools and everything, having a police force that's there that we don't feel is there to make us, just like everyone has an opinion, but making us feel safe, make us feel firm. Burbank is doing their Pride now in September, I think, which is October. And last time we went, they had last year they had it at the park, but the year before that they had it in a parking lot of the banking area. And what really, I think, upset a lot of people was that the police on our side were just kind of like, knock it out, get back on the sidewalk, you're breakable. And that's how they were speaking to us. But on the other side, with these protesters, they were sitting there and they were just kind of like, oh, I get it, you gotta give them their space though, and they were using slurs. So we absolutely felt there was a fight between us and them. But I think just the way we want to, make allies of the people that are coming and protesting our events, if we can get to a place where we can feel not just safe but also affirmed by local law enforcement, I think is a really important thing that the queer community needs, and that is essential to undoing the historical trauma that queer people feel around policing. So thank you for that.
All right, we have time for one last question.
Probably not as much of a question as it is a couple of thoughts. There's a lot of apathy when it comes to politics, especially by young people, right? What's my vote going to do? Why am I wasting my time? Well, in watching the video of the city council meeting, and I hate to admit this, but my uncle was one of the ones making comments that were very disparaging towards the LGBTQ plus community. And newsflash, he's running for Congress. So just to sit back and just kind of let these things play out it's not an option for you guys anymore. Get involved, know who's running, know what they're about, and you need to really stand up and make sure the correct candidates are serving these seats, because things can change, especially at the local level, maybe not at the congressional level. He'll be one of 200 and something congressmen if he were to get in, and he won't, let me tell you that. But we need to make sure that we're getting people that are representative of their entire constituency, not just one small group who's making a lot of noise right now. This stuff, it comes in ebbs and flows. When I was a kid, I'm in my 50s now, there was a movement in the 80s where Nazi skinheads were on Oprah, they were on Geraldo, and they were basically masquerading their hatred beliefs behind the Bible. And that's kind of what these people are doing now. They're anti-queer for one reason or the other, don't know why. but they're hiding their hate behind religion because that's going to be a little bit more accepted. So, I don't want you guys to feel that your vote doesn't matter or getting involved is like, wasting your good time or anything like that. It's very, very important, guys. So please stay involved. Educate yourselves on who these candidates are, know what they're about, and make sure that they're representing you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of coverage of that. A lot of these organizations do take action politically at the local level, at small city councils, as well as school board elections, so something to keep in mind. Do any of you have anything you want to say right now?
Join us at City of San Fernando Pride.
I want to thank the panel and the sun, but also the people of San Fernando. It's really interesting. My husband and I just moved in to San Fernando. Well, we lived in San Fernando, but Silmar in 2017. And the businesses that you mentioned, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but you mentioned that we gradually, you can tell the great work you're doing because without even knowing or hearing from others or a pamphlet, we gradually were attracted to your businesses. We've been to all your businesses, didn't realize that the work that you've been doing in the community, and that's the businesses we brag about to our friends that, we have this in San Fernando, we have a record store, there's a Whiteley, so it's amazing. And to run into people that in the work that you're doing, I come here and see faces that I ran into people at your business for the work that you've been doing. We made friends, it's 2 days we're here, and we met them at the street fair. But the work that you all are doing in San Fernando, not just you, but the people of San Fernando, thank you so much. Thank you for the sun.
Just want to give a big thank you to all of our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and expertise with us, all the resources that you shared. Some of the pamphlets on the back, you can pick up that there are some resources back there. Also, thank all of you for coming here today and participating. And Brenda, you want to say anything?
I think this is a wonderful first step, that we're all talking amongst friends. I think that's what we are. We have to find a way, though, to bring the other side along somehow. We're so tribalized now. One of the things I learned as a young woman, and I'm not that anymore, was never talk about politics or religion, right? So we have to, though, I think, get a little uncomfortable and figure out how we can do that, because that's the only way, I think, that we can break down barriers and make it better for all of us, because we are all supposed to live our best lives and feel free and feel comfortable in our community. So I want to thank you all for coming here again. It's very important for us to have you here, and we look forward to the next one. Yes, let's all go to the Pride Parade. I remember I went to the very first one, and I heard a couple saying that they loved that it was here. They felt safe for the first time. They didn't have to go to West Hollywood. They were here in their community. So let's do it again, and thank you again.